I am a blue noser who lives in Castine. While I now operate a charter boat company aboard the Little Toot and teach at Maine Maritime Academy, I was once new to the village. When I arrived in the early 2000s, I found work at the old Holiday House and began sailing aboard the schooner Bowden, the very reason I came to Castine. I was young, although not a teenager, still green. 2 years earlier, I had signed aboard the bark Picton Castle and sailed from my home in Nova Scotia to Bermuda in celebration of the new millennium. It is true what Stan Rogers sings. You can smell the flowers of Bermuda and Hawaii from miles offshore. You can smell the rendered fish of Reedville across the bay in Virginia. And when arriving from sea, you can smell the Maine coast pine. In my voyages, there are few more splendid shores than those of down east Maine. 12 miles offshore, the land resembles the slow, rolling swells of the Gulf of Maine. Its crests, the hilltops of MDI and the Camden Hills. Its troughs, the tidal passages of the Penobscot and Union River. Periodically, my family would drive from our home in Nova Scotia to visit family in Boston. Ellsworth was a mile marker on that trip, and it was a place name in a story that gripped my fascination and shaped my identity. The story begins in 1861 with a schooner called the Wanderer of Ellsworth. Coastal traders, the schooners served as the long-haul tractor trailers of their day. After arriving in Boston in late November to trade cargo, the schooner departed for Ellsworth in ballast with passengers and crew, Seaman Simon Flood, mate Moses Hodgkins, and Captain Charles Bellete. The following day awoken to a severe gale that persisted without much cessation for 23 days. The storm blew the Wanderer far offshore where it lost its jibboom, the bowsprit, parted the fore and main rigging, lost the wheel and sails, straining the vessel and causing her to leak. For 8 days, Captain Bellete and his crew suffered dreadfully from thirst, with no fire and nothing to eat except hard crackers. When I was aboard the bark Picton Castle, I heard the same sound of the gale force winds in the rigging. The sound fills your head, swamping all but the most deliberate thoughts in a wash of wicked white noise. That was nothing compared to the state of those aboard the Wanderer, cold, thirsty, and facing immediate and imminent peril. Imagine now, aboard the Wanderer, you spot a ship cresting on a great wave, a swell of hope. Captain Bellete, he runs off to meet her, heaving the colors to signify distress. An English ship passes within hailing distance. No attempt to stop or effort to assist is made. Everyone aboard must have shared a deep uneasiness. In my career so far, and knock on wood, I have been spared from the immediate events of tragedy, although it's never very far. In October this year, the crew of the Grace Bailey lost a shipmate, and when the mast snapped and fell to deck, tremendous loss on the last day of their charter season. This may be why many mariners I know have a solemn character, born and weathered at sea like driftwood off the beach. In the new year of 1862, the crew of the Wanderer must have been crestfallen. However, and blessed for them, only a few days later, Captain August Claeys, commanding the Belgian bark L'Anversois of Antwerp, en route to New York, spots the Wanderer. Still blowing a gale at the time, Captain Claeys works the bark alongside the Wanderer in spite of imminent risk of losing his vessel and crew. Indeed, if he had not been the master of his profession, he never could have done it. By the following morning, all the passengers and crew of the Wanderer were safely aboard the L'Envoi and under the command of Captain Claeys. If not for Captain Claeys, they should in all probability have been lost. The L'Envoi arrived in New York with all aboard a week later. Captain Bellete and the crew expressed their high appreciation for the kindness and humanity of Captain Claeys in rescuing them at great peril to his own ship and crew. And his bravery and considerate act was acknowledged by the President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. In a testimonial of his high appreciation for the captain's humane services towards shipwrecked American seamen, Captain Claeys was awarded a Presidential Gold Medal, a precursor to the life-saving medals later authorized in 1874. I am Captain Zander Claeys Parker, and Captain Claeys is my ancestor. I carry his name proudly. It's a name my father has passed on to me and I have passed to my son, Claeys Parker. I have come to deeply admire both Captain Claeys and Captain Bellete's leadership and skill, the resolve of the people aboard those vessels, and their ability to persevere in times of dire adversity. I admire their resilience. I have arrived in Castine, excited, distracted by wanderlust, and uncertain of my newly chosen maritime vocation. Since then, I've sailed to distant ports, I've married a fellow sailor, and we now have 3 lovely children. I have come to understand that purpose and conviction are a fabric woven by fate and experience. The name Claeys is a family legacy, a waypoint set generations ago and guided by my moral and spiritual way through calm and storm to my family home and profession as a Blue Noser in Castine.